Major funding for this program is provided by grants from HSH Nordbank, New York branch, and First American Title Insurance Company of New York. Additional funding is provided by grants from Signature Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, the Wickoff Group, and the Engel Berman Group.
Welcome to Building New York. My name is Michael Stoller. 54 years ago, a young gentleman is born in Bombay. His father is in the real estate development, but really in the single-family type of real estate development. And at the age of 21, after completing his degree in civil engineering, Arun Bhatia makes the decision to go to the University of Wisconsin to their real estate program, one of the best in the nation. And this individual who really hadn't been out of India in his life goes there. So Arun, I'm very lucky today to have Arun Bhatia, President and CEO of Bhatia Development. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael.
You could have stayed in India at 21. Your father had a business. It was a single-family business or something like that. Why did you come to first Wisconsin?
Wisconsin, I wanted to first have my master's. I wanted to have education in the United States, still considered obviously the best in the world. And there was something unique about this program which got my attention because it helped me to combine the two things I wanted to do. One was the real estate business. I was actually bored of civil engineering and structural engineering, and I wanted to somehow or other learn something, how I can incorporate the business aspects in my day-to-day life. And there was no doubt from age 5, I wanted to be a developer when I was with my father, and I thought I would do it, but I wanted to do it in my own way.
So after Wisconsin, you completed the 2-year program in a year and a half. You then went to Chicago. You went to the city, the big city in Chicago, and then you go to work for a public company called Centex.
Yes.
And what were you doing over there?
It's Centex Homes. They are still the second largest home building company in the United States. I was hired from the campus, actually, UW, by them as a management trainee. They were looking for young, smart, well-educated people. That was a transition for them because they had all the people with construction experience, but no one with formal education. And it was a great thing for me to be there for 2 years, see the business from a corporate point of view. But in a strange way, it gave me inspiration to obviously do things on my own, because this development business, at least the way I wanted to do it, I thought that was not to be able to be done by a very large, completely decentralized company.
It's 1977. You're 23 and a half?
Mm-hmm. 25.
25. You're 25. I forgot basically. You're 25, and you come to New York City. Now, you had said to me that Manhattan was similar to Bombay. What do you mean by that?
Manhattan being an island, Bombay also being an island. Both the places have tremendous shortage of land, land where you can build, land which is properly zoned, and both have high populations. When I grew up, Bombay's population was about 6.5 million. Now, of course, it's reached 12 million, including the suburbs. But land was always in short supply. You were forced to go high. And virtually there were no single-family homes. So that kind of, something I was used to. I grew up in a high-rise. I always saw high-rises, and that's what I wanted to build.
So you come back in 1977 and you move to Flushing, an area of what we say 216 different dialects. And what do you do in Flushing?
Flushing at that time in the 70s was a good place for me to start. Manhattan, where I eventually wanted to go, was too expensive for me to start my business. I had $10,000 in my pocket, which I had saved up from my job. And I thought that I would be able to do something on a small scale, on a small basis, starting with some home in Queens.
So what was the first project of Bhatia Development? It's an interesting story, especially with the foreclosure in the land. Tell me about it.
After scouting the brokers and papers, I came across these 2 lots in Whitestone, Queens, very close to the water, which I found out were foreclosed by Whitestone Savings and Loan Bank. And I made them an offer for 50 cents on a dollar as to what their loan was. And basically, the 2 lots cost me $10,000. I also appealed to them, and to my surprise and joy, they also approved a construction loan for me. They were impressed with my presentation. They told me they'd never seen a presentation like that before for somebody who wanted to build 2 single-family homes. So that gave me a great start.
So you spent $10,000 on the 2 lots, and you sold these 2 houses $100,000 apiece.
That's correct.
And from the $10,000, you made $60,000.
Yes.
You made $30,000.
Yes, I made a $50,000 profit.
You made a nice profit on it.
Yes.
And then you went to the development of what we would call a mother-daughter homes.
That's correct. Right. I developed several of them in Flushing, Corona, in Whitestone, in that particular area for the next 4 years.
And then it was time to come to the island.
That's right.
And interesting, our studio is on 34th Street in the Altman building, and you came to the island. You were scouting out something right across the street from this.
That's
the
correct.
Former Bond clothing store and manufacturing facility. What did you do over there on 35th Street and 5th Avenue?
I just saw a sign on the building for sale, called the phone number. Took me weeks to get in. It was foreclosed and owned at that time by Bowery Savings Bank, which was just around the corner on 34th. They had a huge branch. They had foreclosed on it, and they were looking for a buyer who would purchase the building without any preconditions. And I was successful after several months of negotiations. I saw the building in a totally different light than a lot of the established players at that time who were trying to convert it into an office building, being on 5th. I was the only one who looked at it as a magnificent residential building, because I loved the fact that the ceiling heights on majority of the floors were higher than 12 feet. On the lower 4 floors were over 16 feet. And I'll never forget the day I went into the building, because they just sent me the keys. They had a guard dog in the building, and the building was totally dark, and I went in like a detective with flashlights and walked up and down, and I said, this is great, I'm going to buy this building.
Now, you know what's very interesting? That was, and it still is, the first real residential building on 5th Avenue between 34th Street or let's say 28th Street, Madison Park, and really Trump Tower or the Olympic Tower. And you were really, this is 1980. And this is a difficult time with interest rates, and Bond was out of business, the clothing store was out of business, and you built, tell my audience, you built 370, it was called 372 Fifth Avenue. What was it?
372 Fifth Avenue. I built a total of 100 apartments. I added 2 floors to the existing 8-story building and made them penthouses. And it was a very successful project, because a lot of people who purchased lived and worked in the neighborhood, and a lot of people used them as home offices. And people loved the concept of sleeping lofts, which I built to take advantage of the height. And the building was a great success, even in a very tough market in 1980-81.
And then you said from 35th Street you went up to 86th Street.
That's correct. I saw a lot for sale on through a broker on 86 between 2nd and 3rd. I developed a 21-story building called the Park East from ground up. It was my first high-rise, brand new in Manhattan, and also at the same time purchased the land on East 38th Street.
And on East 38th Street, what did you do over there?
East 38th Street, I developed a beautiful condominium called the Whitney. It's a 28-story building with about 85 apartments, which I developed between 1983 and 85.
Then you went to 81st Street.
Then I went to 84th Street.
401 East 80th.
That's correct. The building is called the Dunhill Condominium, and that again was a 29-story project with 87 apartments, and very successful. All these projects were, majority of them were sold out before they were completed. And then right after that I did the Stanford.
And I think the Stanford was interesting because in 1985, nobody really wanted to be in Madison Square Park. Today, Madison Square Park is where the Shake Stop is. It's next to 11 Madison Avenue. It has all of this. And you built a very unusual building and a beautiful building over there.
That's correct. That lot used to be the parking lot for the judges, for the appellate court division judges. And the city sold it in an auction, and I purchased it from the person who had bought it in the auction. And it was a great building, 41 stories. I had 8 stories because of the zoning. The first 7 stories I had to build commercial, which I put medical offices in. All the apartments from 8th to 41st had beautiful park views, and the building was really successful. It's still is there every time I go by it, you know. I feel very proud.
But you know, it was interesting because that was, you know, the same way that 372 Fifth Avenue and 35th Street and 5th was before its time. That was before its time. And now everything around that neighborhood,
yes,
a lot is converting over there, and Park Avenue South is becoming. Then I'd say the really change, before Disney moved to Times Square, before anything happened, you made a major decision and you created the first condominium really in Times Square.
Yes, west of Times Square on 43rd and 10th. I was intrigued by...
That's called the Strand.
That's called the Strand. I was intrigued by the site. I could picture a really distinctive building there because of the lot size and the way I could position it. The building is not placed in its regular north-south axis in Manhattan, as you see. I did not want to build a conventional rectangle tower, so I went to Costas, you know, one of the best architects, Costas Kondylis, and together I think he converted my vision into this beautiful building for which, you know, we won all kinds of awards from National Association of Home Builders. The building was very successful, has 42 stories, a rooftop health club, and incredible views from every apartment. Yeah, it was ahead of time, but that's what normally I have done. I have always found niches in the marketplace, which I think, you know, I discover, and you know, I like having a little challenge.
You know, but north of Times Square, I mean, it was across the street from the Manhattan Plaza, which was a Mitchell Lama apartments, where a lot of entertainers,
yes,
Jerry Seinfeld, you know, Kramer, and all these other, and Larry David were there. But this was really an unproven area. I mean, Larry Silverstein had property over there. He hadn't been built it yet. You know, it was near the Greyhound Terminal.
Yes.
There were no real amenities. There were no supermarket. It was a difficult decision. You know, certain people made rentals, and you made the decision to do a condo. How come you decided to do a condominium as opposed to a rental?
I generally, maybe it's in my nature, but I prefer doing condos. I do not like working with all kinds of different regulations which come in with the 80-20 buildings and rent-stabilized buildings, and I like to create a better product, which usually tends itself to be a condo. And, you know, I like selling people their dreams. You know, I mean, people who bought, a lot of them are still living into the building, and there was not a single building in the area with these kind of amenities, these kind of views. And it gives me a lot of pride in doing that. I mean, I'm not the person who would build, like cookie cutter rentals, which somehow other rental leads to doing a product which is not the best.
Now, suddenly, you then go to become really you assist the East New York Savings Bank, East River Savings Bank.
Correct.
As a fee developer, or what do you do with them on the Royal?
The Royal York is a building which East River Savings Bank had had foreclosed on. And I developed and renovated and sold around 250 apartments in that building over a course of 7 or 8 years. And, I just used my expertise sort of to help them and, of course, create a good fee stream. And that was really, if you recall, was not really a very busy time for new development in Manhattan from 94.
There was very few developments.
Yes.
So it was good that you were able to find creativity.
Yes, no, I had a very good time doing it. They're very nice to work with. And in fact, that relationship developed into other projects, which also I completed for them. There were projects which certain developers did not finish in Philadelphia. I finished it for them. That was a good relationship.
And then you were, you liked walking. You said 38th Street. You found an apartment, the Whitney. Then on 3rd Avenue, you were walking one day and you went to a restaurant, Pen and Pencil.
That's right. A broker had told me that restaurant, very famous institution, I think was visited by Daily News reporters and a lot of other reporters. He thought that it may be for sale. I went in there, looked at it, and expressed my interest. It was a difficult site because the footprint was not that large, and I had to assemble a lot of air rights, which I did with help of a very good broker, Robert Shapiro. And we eventually assembled the whole corner for about 120,000 square feet building, about 30 stories high.
But subsequently, you didn't. This one, as opposed to the others where you assembled, you didn't build this.
No, I did not. I got an offer I could not refuse from a company called Homestead. They were a public hotel company. They wanted to open a hotel, and we were just coming out of a biggest recession. I got an offer which was wonderful, and I said, why not?
And it's interesting, Homestead then sold the property to another developer.
That's
and
correct.
Built the Alex, which
Correct.
is a hotel and extended stay.
Correct.
Now, the next site, which I really think is one of, probably next to the newest site, one of the most creative, it was 1998, and the infamous Ronald Perlman of Revlon, McAndrews, and Forbes owned a photo company?
It was a television studio, and the television company, I believe, was not in business, and then the building was vacant for several years.
This is on 55th Street.
Correct, between 2nd
and 3rd, not too far from P.J. Clark's.
Yes, right next to 919 3rd Avenue, right behind it. And he apparently donated that building to Guggenheim Museum, which held an auction, and then I purchased that property.
But so now you bought the property, but in order to make the building higher, as you said, like Bombay and everything, you have to go up. Otherwise, you really can't accomplish something. And what was very interesting is you told me you had to go to New York Telephone and explain to them that you wanted to buy the air above the building.
That's correct.
And for my viewers, explain what do you mean by the air rights and how that discussion took place.
They really, New York Telephone at that time were not as aggressive as they are today. They were undergoing a sale to Bell Atlantic, and I had to talk to the people in Virginia to convince them. And we all in New York real estate business, we buy and sell air rights all the time. It was a foreign concept for them. And they kept on telling me that they did not want to sell the building because they had all their equipment in it, which they cannot ever remove. And I said to them, I'm not asking you to sell the building, I'm asking you to sell the air rights, development rights. And eventually they did hire experts in the field, got it appraised, and I was successful in purchasing it from them.
So, but now, your initial plans for this property was an extended stay type of building. And subsequently, what did you do at this property, which today is called the Capri Inn? You'll explain to my audience.
Sure. Yes, as you said, initially the plan was to do lower floors, extended stay hotel, and upper floors, residential apartments, condominiums. What happened is I was approached after I had purchased the site and I'd finished the plans, and I even actually had a loan commitment to start the project. I was approached at that point by Marymount Manhattan College through a broker, Joseph Croto, Sr. And I got interested in this proposal in which they wanted certain floors of the building to do student housing. We were not in the bull market at that time by any chance. I thought to myself, this is not bad if I can accomplish this, even though it was a very difficult transaction because we had to do 2 buildings into one. They did not want the entire building, and I did not want to even sell them the entire building because I thought it would be a good combination to hold the upper floors for future and sell them the lower floors. They started with 20 floors and they wound up actually eventually buying 32 floors in the building. It's a very successful, probably one of the nicest dorms for student housing, I would say, in the country because they have incredible air, light, and views and very good facilities.
So that was the first 32 floors, and then you built the next 15?
Yes. I built the 33rd to 47th floor as condominiums, which totally obviously different finishes, which I rented them all out in 2001 as I had already sold 70% of the condominium to the college. And I held them.
So this time was a little different. You're now renting as opposed to...
Yes. Even though they were condominiums, but as I said, since 70% of the building was already sold, I was of the opinion that the prices in 2001 were not the best possible prices for that property. And I waited, which I think my decision proved to be right.
And you were also fortunate that you rented them 1 month before 9/11.
That's correct.
Which changed the market. So
yes.
A little fortuitous at that time over there.
That's true. Yes, I rented all the 40 apartments in about 30 days.
And then it's different. Then you like student housing, and you've something on 13th Street. What did you do on 13th Street?
On 13th Street, I had purchased a beautiful landmark building from Ladies Christian Union, and I had plans to convert it into 30 super luxury condominiums. However, I was approached at that time due to my entry into the dormitory market. New School University sought me out because they had eyes on the same building, but they could not act fast enough, and they asked me if I would be interested in converting that into a dormitory if we could work a deal out, which we did. It was extremely successful. I converted the whole building in less than a year, and they have beautiful housing now for 185 students in that building.
And you sold them that building?
Yes, I sold them that building. That's what.
And subsequently, you did another deal with the New School after on 20th Street.
That's correct. The southeast corner of 20th and 8th, and I purchased that lot from a Florida REIT and did a brand new 7-story building, which is as high as it's permitted in the Chelsea Historic District, and did student housing for 202 students.
Also for the New School?
Also for New School. I net leased it to them, and they may purchase it someday.
And now, like the Strand, which was before its time and a very unusual project, you have 139 Worcester.
That's right.
And tell me a little bit about 139 Worcester.
139 Worcester site was owned by the Hyatt Corporation. They wanted to build a boutique hotel. They held it for almost...
It was a parking lot.
It was a parking lot, yes. They held it almost for 10, 12 years, did not know what exactly they wanted to do, and eventually decided to sell it when the land prices really went high in 2002, 2003. I was the successful bidder out of 15 or so developers they approached. And I knew it would be a difficult job because I was in smack in the heart of Soho Historic District. You cannot get a better location than that. And
You're bounded by West Broadway.
yes, the lot is located, has two frontage, one on West Broadway, one on Wooster, is between Prince and Houston. And I had to build, I knew, a very special building because it had to go through all the approval processes. It was a special permit building from City Planning Commission. So I knew that it would be thoroughly reviewed, thoroughly examined by every possible agency. And I hired, that's why, the best possible architects, which I thought for this kind of a job. Blarb and Abel, who are well known for their beautiful renovation and presidential awards of Grand Central Terminal renovation. And I think together we have achieved, it's under construction, but I think we have achieved something very significant. New York Times recently did an article on it and showed how difficult it is because this is one building which has 4 different facades. Very difficult to build, almost like a watch, as I said in my Times article. It's almost like building a custom watch because there are so many different custom parts, which does not allow you to have luxury of any repetitiveness, any volume work. And, I mean, essentially, the 2 different facades, first elevations on West Broadway and Wooster Street, both the streets are totally different. Wooster Street is a cast iron buildings, West Broadway is brick buildings. So I had to do completely 2 different facades. On the internal part of the building, on the garden, is a different facade. That's a beautiful, beautiful Zen garden in the middle of the building.
So, and that's being sold right now. That's 40 condominiums.
No, that's 16 condominiums.
16.
It's already 10 sold. We have 6 left, and the building will be completed in January.
And you're thinking of another new school?
Yes, we are working on a project with New School, hopefully shortly in the
on 19th Street.
Street. That's correct.
So, it's interesting that the man who was born, grew up in Bombay, who later in his life, your father was very proud of you, even though he would have liked you to stay there in Bombay.
That's right.
Truly became a builder of New York. And I'd like to thank you, and I think the city would like to thank you for all the interesting things, and thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much.
Major funding for this program is provided by grants from HSH Nordbank, New York branch, and First American Title Insurance Company of New York. Additional funding is provided by grants from Signature Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, the Wickoff Group, and the Engel Berman Group.